Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me, Layla?
Loud and clear, Mayor. How are you?
So quiet. I wonder if anybody getting any volume there. I don't see Linda or Steve yet.
I do not either. We still have a couple minutes.
3 minutes to go.
Steve.
Yes, I am here.
Oh, hey, Steve, I just saw your email. If you want to ask, there'll be a chance during the interviews to ask follow-up questions. You can certainly do it at that time if you want.
Yeah, no, I figured that was the case. So thank you.
Okay, I just saw that just before I got on here, so then feeding my face.
I had the same problem. Woofed it down.
Do we have Linda yet?
Looks like not yet.
Okay, well, wait a second. See Linda coming in yet, Nia?
Not yet. I'm going to shoot her a text.
Okay.
Yes. We're good to go.
Okay, she's coming, huh? All right, there she is. All right, everybody, it's 1 minute after 6, so let's start our September City Council meeting on this beautiful, still summer evening, I guess. But it's so sunny at my house, I had to put a blanket over the window so I could see my computer screen because the sun's shining right in my face. But anyway, let's get started. So first of all, we'll start with the audience participation as we usually do for anybody has any public comment. And I'll remind everybody that this is a time for comment. It's not a time for debate, nor a time for members of the public to ask the council questions or expect answers or responses. And you have up to 3 minutes if someone would like to address the council this evening.
Those are just your questions.
I have no hands raised yet.
Now let's give it a few seconds here.
How do you know? Do you have to look? Muted.
Somebody's talking and not muted. Okay, if we don't have any comments this morning, let's move on to our consent agenda. And tonight we have 5 different series of city council meetings, minutes to approve, budget committee work session, and our council work session to approve, and approval of bills for payment. Any,
And I just wanted to note quickly for the record, I sent it to council, but for those watching, we had put $5,000 of an expenditure under the police for surplus acquisition, and that actually should have been under admin. So the packet's been updated and that number is in the right column.
okay. Any questions on the consent agenda, or can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move to approve the consent agenda as presented in the packet.
I second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor of approval of consent agenda, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. Okay, and then we're going to talk about a proclamation, this being Emergency Preparedness Month. Now, is Chris Campbell with us? Is she going to present that?
She is indeed.
I am here.
Hi.
Hi. I was going to talk to you a little bit about ED and, the Emergency Volunteer Corps and all of our accomplishments.
Sure.
Anyway, good evening. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to briefly address you tonight. My name's Chris Campbell. My husband Tom and I purchased our first home in this area in 2005. We both subsequently retired, and we currently reside in the Classic Ridge area in Manzanita. We've been full-time residents here for 8 years. And I thank you for declaring September as Emergency Preparedness Month in Manzanita. I am a volunteer for the Emergency Volunteer Corps of Nehalem Bay, also known as ECCNB. And most of you know that ECCNB is a nonprofit, volunteer-run training organization whose mission is to promote a culture of preparedness. My involvement with EVCNB began a little over a year ago when I was asked to stand up a neighborhood cluster for the Classic Ridge for the Prepare Your Neighborhood initiative, which is under the EVCNB umbrella. And Prepare Your Neighborhood is a grassroots effort to raise the level of preparedness among neighbors throughout the Nehalem Bay region. Neighbors helping neighbors is the underlying principle of the Prepare Your Neighborhood program. Clusters are neighborhood groups engaged in working together to be prepared in the event of a major emergency or disaster. The message that I give my neighborhood is that our goal is to be as self-sufficient as possible, so we're not a burden to the city, who will have their hands full with the needs of tourists and others who are visiting the area. I came to BDCNB as a retired Boeing executive. During my career, I've seen both good leadership and bad leadership. That having been said, I've been very impressed with the leadership and support I've been given by EVCNB to establish my cluster. I'm honored to share just a few of the organization's accomplishments with you tonight. While COVID continues to challenge the organization to function as they did before the pandemic, EVCNB accomplished significant advances to support disaster readiness, resilience, and response from 2021 to 2022. EVCNB was able to provide supplies and equipment to the community through several grants. They developed and distributed 4 full nest kits thanks to a grant from the Select Tribal Charitable Contribution Fund. NEST stands for Neighborhood Emergency Supplies and Tools. Each kit is valued at $2,000 and will provide organization, communication, shelter, first aid, and water sanitation materials for a neighborhood's benefit. My new Classic Ridge cluster was one of those fortunate recipients. A Tillamook County grant allowed EVCNB to donate 10 go bags to the Nehalem Methodist Church, who distributed the bags to low-income residents in the community. Additionally, all 12 organized neighborhoods received an enhanced nest supplies to standardize and support leadership, organization, and communication functions. In addition, An amateur radio digital communications grant has helped support more reliable communication throughout Tillamook County and improving communication into Clatsop County. EBC&B developed a drill that allowed volunteers to practice radio communications and evacuation skills while supporting our local food bank. Over 30 volunteers and 100 donors contributed 2,300 pounds of food and $3,225 donations. The Oregon Department of Human Services Office of Emergency Management approached EBC&B with an opportunity to partner and practice mass care solutions. The drills involved our Medical Reserve Corps and our community emergency support team volunteers. Other agencies that participated were Oregon Health Authority, Tillamook County Health Department, Nehalem Bay Fire and Rescue, City of Manzanita, Nehalem Bay Health Center and Pharmacy, and Adventist Health. Following that 2-day exercise, the community was invited to tour the site. Through interactive tours, guests learned the importance of individual preparedness and immediate actions they could take to reduce their reliance on a mass care site. I was involved with this effort as a tour guide for groups of guests, and it was a learning experience for all of us. EBC&B continues to build our volunteer base through our volunteer coordinator, Logan Laity. I had the privilege of having Logan's assistant while standing up my cluster. I found him to be an enthusiastic, intelligent, and committed mentor. Despite our 40-year age difference, I learned a great deal from him about volunteer engagement. Last but not least, the Community Emergency Response Team is also known as CERT, has been completing training to add several more certs to its rank. I have been working on becoming a CERT for about a year now, and I'm pleased to report that I will officially be part of this team after our final exam, September 10th. I encourage you to visit our website at ebcnb.org to learn more about what EBC&B does, to access the many resources available for your personal preparedness and for up-to-date training, class, and event schedules. Thank you again for the time you allowed me, and thank you for your interest and commitment in our organization's success. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chris, for that update. That's good. Does anybody from the council have any questions for Chris here tonight? Well, would someone like to make a motion to proclaim September 2022 as Emergency Preparedness Month in Manzanita?
Mr. Mayor, before we make the motion, did we want to read the proclamation, or do we have a copy of the proclamation?
Yes, I do. I have it right here, and I can read it after we approve it, okay? Or do you want me to read it first? Like, I can do it either way.
Well, it'd be nice to see it, I think, for the audience to hear it, and then we make the motion to approve
Okay.
it. But
I will read it. The proclamation says, whereas Emergency Preparedness Month 2022 provides an opportunity for residents of the city of Manzanita to be prepared for any type of emergency where they live, work, and play. And whereas the Emergency Volunteer Corps of Nehalem Bay was created to promote a culture of preparedness for all the residents of the city of Manzanita and Nehalem Bay area. And whereas taking steps toward personal preparedness and ensuring households, businesses, schools, community organizations are prepared for disaster can reduce fatalities and economic devastation following a major crisis and speed up recovery. And whereas continuing efforts to enhance preparedness in the Nehalem Bay region has proven invaluable to the area's response to previously unexpected crises, including tornadoes and a pandemic, by remaining flexible and acting appropriately on as individuals and community-wide basis and avoiding significant disruption in our way of life. Whereas participating in the Preparedness Month 2022 will increase the number of residents who understand which disasters could happen in our community. And whereas Emergency preparedness is the responsibility of every resident, and all residents are urged to make preparedness a priority and work together to ensure that individuals, families, and communities are prepared for disasters and emergencies of any type. Now, therefore, I, Mike Scott, Mayor of the City of Manzanita, a municipal corporation in the county of Tillamook in the state of Oregon, do hereby proclaim September 2022 Emergency Preparedness Month in Manzanita. So now I would like a motion to make that happen.
Mayor, I would move to approve the announcement proclamation for September 2022 as Emergency Preparedness Month in Manzanita as read by Mayor Scott.
I second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay. Okay. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you, Chris. That was a great job. Thank you.
Okay. So now we're going to move into our first item of new business. And tonight we're going to interview two candidates for the open city council position. And before we begin the interviews, we have the two candidates. I know they're on. I see them here tonight, Jenna Edichin and Brad Hart. And before we get started, I know this is a little bit intimidating, interviewing basically for a job in a public forum. And it's a little intimidating for us too, because we get to vote in public and ask you questions in public. So we're going to try to make this as comfortable as we can for you. Just take a deep breath and we'll just get through it. It'll be okay. Okay. So what we're going to do is go alphabetically, and we're going to ask 4 prepared questions and take turns asking them of you. And then we may ask some follow-up questions. And so going alphabetically, we'll start with Jenna, and I have the first question. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. All I got to do is find my notes here. So what work background do you have that will make you a good member of the city council?
Well, I applied in April 2020 to be on the Manzanita Planning Commission. So I do have some government background already with the city. Do you want me to expand on answers?
And whatever you want to say. I mean, whatever you think. So you've been on the planning commission now for how long? About 2 years?
I've been on the Planning Commission for 1.5 years.
Yeah.
I have a lot of background in the city. I've lived here for about 5 years. Well, over 5 years. And in those short 5 years, I have I've really participated and got involved. I am also, as well as being on the Planning Commission, I am on the library board. I have worked with a lot of nonprofits. I've planned successful fundraisers for the Lorna Hanlon Community Trust. I come from a web development background. I've done a lot of work for nonprofits, building them websites and small businesses to give them a web presence that they need. I have stepped up for our community. For example, a vendor at the farmer's market last year didn't have anyone to work their stand. So I rose my hand and stepped up and ran their stand for a year.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you. Let me ask Councilor Nuttall to ask the next question.
You're on mute.
You're not there, Steve?
You didn't hear my question? No, I'm just. Hi, Jenna.
Hi.
I
get all the
I-
questions.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think we're going with one candidate and then we'll move to the next candidate. Is that how we're?
Yes, we're interviewing Jenna first, and then we'll.
Oh, I see.
Right.
Okay.
And I totally understand, have a lot of empathy for you because some 5+ years ago, I was in your seat. And I know how difficult this whole process is. So I extend to both you and Brad appreciation for taking this step and going through the process. But my question is quite simple. Why do you want to serve on the council?
There has been a lot of change in this community in the 5 years that I've lived here, and certainly COVID has accelerated the growth and development. I think we can all agree on that. Change is inevitable, but right now, in the next few years, we can make a positive impact to better guide our town moving forward. What probably excites me the most is that we have a city manager that has the experience and expertise to execute those goals. And I want to be a positive voice in shaping the future.
Okay. I do have a follow-up question. It might be the appropriate time to ask this in following up on what you just described. And I'm going to state something, and then I'm going to have a question at the end of it. But and I'm going to say it this way: many people assume that council members have a great deal of power within the community. The reality is they have more responsibilities. They are bound by ethical, fiduciary, and legal responsibilities to only do what's best for the city of Manzanita and its residents. And those duties must be carried out with the framework of the law, the charter, ordinances, and staff abilities. Often, the desires of a segment of the community may conflict with the constraints that council members and staff operate under. Please explain your response when faced with a difficult, possibly insurmountable obstacle when the community is clamoring for a certain result. And I know you are aware, but one of the two of you in a few minutes will be taking an oath of office, which explains all of this and the duties and obligations that a council member has. I would just like to hear you discuss, how do you handle, and I know in the planning commission, sometimes that happens, where you have certain duties that are outlined, and yet it doesn't necessarily match up with the community.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a bit?
I'm familiar with fiduciary responsibilities. I have a real estate license and I work in real estate in Manzanita. So I have the same responsibilities, similar responsibilities to my buyer seller clients in that aspect. Going to your question of, conflict when a population wants something, but you are unable to attain that based on the laws. That has happened in the last few months. We saw it on the planning commission meeting with a hotel proposal. One of my top priorities for the city to help how I would alleviate that pressure of aligning what we want is we need to this is on everyone's agenda. We need to revise the comprehensive plan, but more importantly, we need to update the zoning codes to match that. I think our comprehensive plan aligns with our vision. We need to tighten it up, and it's a process and it takes time. But the second that that's done, we need to move forward and update our zoning codes and zoning ordinance to match that vision. That's how we make decisions, at least for the planning commission, on our land development, and that could be a conflict down the road.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Spegman, would you like to ask the next question?
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. Hi, Jenna. I've never met you, so this is my first opportunity to interact with you, but I've heard a lot of very positive things. So let me ask you if you could give us an example of a problem that you have solved by listening and compromising and then finding a solution.
Yes. I was at the August 29th City Hall meeting about, that where we had our city manager present, as well as the architect and the project manager present. And it was a great presentation. And what moved on from there is that we had little breakout sessions, group sessions. I was sitting at a table with 8 or 9 other people, many of that I had never met before.
We lost your volume.
You lost my volume?
No, I can, she's fine.
Okay. I was sitting at a group with 8 or 9 other people, and the first question that was asked of our table, and as I believe all tables, was, how can we gain your trust on the City Hall project moving forward? And that is a contentious question. That is a loaded question. And it was not a great conversation. It was difficult. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of history with that question. It's difficult. And there's, yes, we're all aware of that as well. But what happened after that, as we move forward with other questions of what do you want the space to be? What would make this a successful project? It blossomed into a conversation of, I see this, it can be a community gathering space. Not only can we have a space for our city and police to work efficiently, but we can also have a space for our community. That we don't need to cater towards visitors. We certainly, want to provide resources for them, but this can also be our space. And that came from everyone with very different backgrounds. And we came together, and I feel like at that table, we could have designed the building and been happy with it. And our community would have been proud of our accomplishment. And I see that momentum in the city right now, that we need to have these discussions. We don't need to have debates. We can talk one-on-one. We can come together. We can listen. And, the ideas that were discussed with the other people at this table are ideas that I've never heard of, and I'm sure that I was able to contribute ideas as well. And it's exciting. Like, we can move forward as a community by listening.
Were you familiar with the people at the table?
No, I was familiar. I knew one couple very well. But there were 3 other couples that I had never met before, and one other gentleman that I had a loose acquaintance with.
I do have one follow-up question for you. You mentioned answering Steve's last question that you have a real estate license, and I'm just curious about, in your time on the Planning Commission, obviously that background could be helpful in some situations. I imagine there could also be times when it could put you in a position of potential conflict, or at least an awkward position. I'm just wondering if you could reflect on that. How did your professional background in real estate either help or hinder your role on Planning Commission?
Well, I think it certainly helps. I am already aware of some of the developments going on, some of the commercial projects that are going on. If there did seem to be a conflict, I would definitely announce that I had a real estate license. But I have not had, I've been on the Planning Commission for a year and a half, a little over. I have not had to recuse myself from any project, from any decisions.
Okay, thank you.
Speaking of recusing themselves, I forgot to mention at the beginning that Linda Kolowski is not going to be asking questions because she plans to recuse herself when we get to the votes. And she'll explain that when we get to that point. So I'm going to ask a question. So serving on the city council requires attendance at monthly meetings, budget committee meetings, and we seem to have special meetings as needed. Are you available to make these meetings, particularly if sometimes they're on short notice?
Yes, I am. Working in real estate, I do have flexible hours, so I will be available. I will say that November is my only conflict I have a long-standing trip planned with my mother. But other than that, I will be available.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other follow-up questions anyone would like to ask Jenna? Hearing none, thank you. And we're going to move on to our next candidate. So Brad Hart,
Hello,
are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let me ask you the first question. What work background do you have that would make you a good member of the city council?
I've worked in the corporate travel industry for 35 plus years. And within this complex industry, you have a lot of people that you're working with. Customers, vendors, technology providers, your management within the organization that you work for. And I feel like having that diverse experience with all those types of customers, communication is key. I feel like I'm a very effective communicator, having the ability to listen to people and then take all of those ideas and information and present it back to a group in a concise, consolidated manner that everyone understands. I also feel like that's given me the ability to see across divides, because all of those involved parties have specific goals and things that they want to attain, and you have to come to a consensus on what's in the best interest of the overall project, which I feel is very similar within a city council position, is you've got to be looking out for what is the best overall for the city and our progress to move forward, not one specific person, not one specific group. You need to make sure that everyone's involved and that you've researched properly and come to a conclusion that basically comes down to your values and beliefs that would be the correct thing to do to benefit everyone living here.
Thank you, Brad. Councilman Nuttall, you have the next question.
You're on mute.
Mute.
Well, I'm trying to do the same thing for each candidate. I want to be consistent here. So
Yeah. Good job.
I said, hi, Brad.
Hi.
My question is clearly a simple one, and that is, why do you want to be on the city council?
I've been quite involved from a volunteer standpoint with the EVCNB organization, and it's really given me a sense of contributing and making a difference. Very different from a corporate job, whereas many of the goals there are surrounding money and profits. I feel like I have the ability to help, to provide input and experience that is going to support the rest of the council team, as well as all the constituents and people within our community who are looking to the council to lead the city in a direction that will make things better for everyone. So I also have learned from participating in many of the council meetings, workshops, budget committees, that we have the ability to cross the divides between people and make a true difference in our community's life.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Jenna, and that is that many people assume that council members have more power within the community than they probably actually do. The reality is they have many more responsibilities. They are bound by ethical, fiduciary, and legal responsibilities to only do what's best for the city of Manzanita and its residents. And those duties must be carried out within the framework of the law, our charter, ordinances, and staff abilities. Often the desires of a segment of the community may conflict with constraints council members and staff operate under. Please explain your response when faced with a difficult, possibly insurmountable obstacle when the community is clamoring for a certain result. And as I mentioned in the previous applicant, one of you is going to be taking the oath of office here in short order. And within that oath of office are some obligations that you will be assuming, and that includes following the law, following budget processes, following the city's charter, and sometimes, maybe even relatively often, those requirements don't necessarily meet up with the aspirations of the community groups. So can you talk a bit about that?
I, again, would refer back to communication being one of the keys. Is when you've got a situation like that, you've got to be able to communicate and be transparent about your decisions, why you've made those decisions, how you've come to those conclusions. And then part of that would also be education. If there are certain constraints like budgets, that's a black and white. You can refer back to someone that may be pushing back or saying, you haven't made the right decision. But I believe you have to really dig in, do some background checking, learn history of those issues. And then if you come into a contentious situation like that, through that effective communication, you've got to be able to go back and explain to the people, like I said, why that decision's been made and what those constraints are. And in many of those cases, either legally or fiduciary through financing, it's just not possible. And that's to me a very black and white response to some of those issues.
Thank you.
Councilman Spigman, would you like to ask the next question?
Sure. Hi, Brad. How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Good. So my question, which I asked Jenna as well, is to give us an example of a problem that you have solved by listening and compromising and then finding a solution.
Let's see. I had a customer that I was actually working on an integration with some of their technical systems to my company's technical systems. We sat down, both stated our desires of how we wanted these systems to work, what could be accomplished, details about how much it's going to cost, how much time and effort is going to be put in this, but also determining what's going to be better, how we're going to save money, how we're going to be more efficient and accurate. It came to a point that we had basically matched up on all of the items and desires for integration. So things like being able to validate from their system to our system certain key points to improve a process or make it flow. We came to a point that their systems were passing information to us that were not compatible with our systems. There wasn't enough detail. It was basically free-form information. And we all know in the technical world, free-form doesn't work. You got to have things very structured. So in realizing this, the customer continued to push back. We actually had to go through a proof of concept, show them again what was possible, what was within their systems, what the downfalls of their systems were, and how we could make it more accurate. So it was really a process of having open conversations, talking about what could be done, the risk involved with not making a system that was foolproof and accurate. And in the end, we came up with a good system. We compromised on both ends, but eventually developed something that was accurate, timely in delivery, and saved both sides, the customer as well as my company, quite a bit of money and time to be able to accurately produce what the customer was expecting.
Thank you.
Hey, Brad, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Jenna. Serving on the city council requires your attendance at monthly meetings, budget committee meetings, and other special meetings as needed. Are you available for these meetings, even if sometimes they're on a short notice?
Absolutely. I would be available for any of those meetings or impromptu unscheduled things. I'm thankful that we have the technology that we do. So as we're all sitting here at home and in different locations, would certainly have the ability to attend and participate in those things remotely if it was required. But I consider living in Manzanita one of the best long-term vacations I've ever had. So I don't have any intention of taking any leave or long trips away from home.
Great, thank you. So does anybody have any further questions for Brad they'd like to ask? Okay, then I'm going to ask both of you to stand by for a minute because now we're going to publicly vote one of you into the city council position, and we're going to do that alphabetically, and I as mayor will vote last. So alphabetically, the first one I'm calling on is our council.
Mayor Scott, may
Yeah.
I make a brief statement?
Sure.
Because I am running for city council, and on my website, Jenna Edgington is an endorser, and only because of that am I not going to be participating in the voting. But I just have to say, I think we have two excellent candidates. I think we're very lucky at this point. Thank you.
Well, I was just going to call on you and allow you to make that statement. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
it's going to give you a
I
chance.
jumped the gun. I'm
You
sorry.
jumped me. That's okay. So again, going alphabetically, I'm asking for the vote of Councilor Nuttall.
I was hopeful that we were going by first name, but apparently
Very formal
by
tonight, so.
last name. Well, as Linda, the council president Kozlowski suggested, we are blessed to have two great candidates. And I think back, this is my third experience with this process. I hope the new counselors and the new city administration maybe take it under their wing to think about the charter and how we might do this in the future, because it is a hard thing to do, to sit here as a council member and make a decision amongst two great people who would serve the community incredibly well. So as I went through this process and I looked at the resumes and I listened to both Jenna and Brad and their answers, and thinking about the role that a council person plays in the community, I would be voting for Jenna primarily because she has the experience on the planning commission, which right now in our community, the need for comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance and some other issues facing the community are very, very significant. So she will have the opportunity to hit the ground, so to speak, running. Brad, you would be terrific as well. And I sincerely hope that you continue efforts. If you're not the person appointed, that you continue to both volunteer and participate, and hopefully at some point serve on the city council. So thank you.
That's my intent.
Good, thank you.
Councilor Spigman, your vote, please.
Sure. First, I'm going to follow C's lead and make a few comments. I certainly agree that the next council should consider a change to the charter. This is the third time in just a little over 5 years that a vacancy has been filled in this fashion, and I don't think it's something we should ignore going forward. We've got 3 candidates right now actively campaigning to be on council, and they're answering a whole lot more questions than Brad and Jenna have faced tonight. And they're going through a lot of scrutiny, and it's a significant undertaking. I tip my hat to all 3. That's not to diminish the interest that Jenna and Brad have on serving. Neither of you asked for this vacancy to occur, and I'm glad you're both applying. I'm really glad that we have a choice. But I think as a council, we need to figure out a way to not have this happen again if we can avoid it. So that would be my hope for the next council. As far as the 2 candidates tonight, again, I'm really glad we have a choice. It would be a shame if we had only one candidate. I found the 2 written applications that were submitted to be very interesting, both because they were both good applications, but they were very different applications. One explained a lot about the candidate's background and skill set and qualifications based on experience in the workplace. The other talked about why the candidate wanted to be on council, what drove the candidate to seek this vacancy. And to me, that was the more compelling application. I do not think that prior government experience is a prerequisite to be on city council, but I do agree with Steve that at this particular time in Manzanita, planning commission related issues are paramount. And I think it would be very valuable to have Jenna's, even if it's a relatively short stint on the planning commission, having that background on the new council, I think will be valuable. And so I will vote for Jenna, but I feel very fortunate to have a difficult choice, but to have a real choice tonight. And I thank you, Brad, for applying. And I think as we look forward, this is a period of transition. There'll be opportunities on both council and budget committee and planning commission in the not too distant future.
Thank you, Jerry. I, as mayor, I am also going to vote for Jenna for the same reasons that are being expressed by both Stephen and Jerry. Jenna's experience on the planning commission is going to be invaluable to the new council as they deal with land use issues, and there will be many of them next year. Brad, both of you guys, I know how uncomfortable it is to sit up here and do this. I got on the city council and went through the same process too, believe it or not. And I appreciate you both stepping forward and doing this. And Brad, I'm going to encourage you to apply for the planning commission. Jenna's position is going to be open now. She moves up to the council, and there's another position opening that's coming up December 1st. So jump in there and throw your hat in the ring for that too. I think that it'd be great if you do that. So with that being said, Jen has been appointed to the city council, and I'm now going to ask Layla to give her the oath of office. And then she will be moved up to a panelist and will join us immediately as a city councilor for the rest of this meeting. So Layla.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Brad. As Mayor Scott mentioned, we'll have actually 3 open positions on the planning commission. 2 folks or terms are up in December, and then also Jenna's position. So I also am echoing just the abundance of gratitude that we have to have 2 talented folks stepping up to the plate. So appreciate your involvement. Jenna, welcome to the team. We're going to get you started tonight. I warned all of you and shared the information, so hopefully you're read up and ready to go. Before we do that, I get the pleasure and honor of swearing you in. So just ask you to repeat after me, and I'll hopefully stop at intervals that you can remember what I said. So I, Jenna Edgington, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and laws of the state of Oregon,
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and laws of the state of Oregon,
the charter and ordinances of the city of Manzanita,
the charter and ordinances of the city of Manzanita,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of city councilor
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties
as city councilor
of the city of Manzanita in the county of Tillamook,
in the city of Manzanita and county of Tillamook,
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Well, congratulations. I'll need you to sign this. So I'll reach out to you to do that. Welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Jenna. We're going to move right into the next item. The next item we have on the agenda tonight is an update from Mark Johnson, the chairman on the Nehalem Bay Health District. And I saw you're on board here tonight, Mark, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you much, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I really appreciate the opportunity to spend a couple of minutes with you this evening to provide a quick update on what we're trying to accomplish at the Nehalem Bay Health District. Just start off by saying we've had 3 objectives that were identified in a strategic plan we did some time back. One, we wanted to try to improve primary health care delivery in our part of Tillamook County. We wanted to leverage whatever assets the health district has to address our affordable and workforce housing crisis, even in some modest ways. And we wanted to work with various partners in the community, including the North County Food Bank, to try to address issues like food security, which you all know is not an insignificant concern in the community. So before I jump into the meat of my brief presentation, I just want to acknowledge Mayor Scott. Back several months ago, when the health district started down the road of trying to convince our congressional delegation, primarily Senators Merkley and Wyden, that we had a project that would be worthy of their support and advocacy. I reached out to Mike, said it may be a crazy idea, but you think the mayors of Manzanita, Nehalem, and Wheeler would write a joint letter for us endorsing this project to build a new health center and pharmacy in Wheeler. And with no hesitation at all, Mike said yes, and I'll help round up the other suspects. So I've been joking, I don't know whether it's true or not, but I've been joking that this may be the first time in the history of the three villages that the mayors have all signed the same letter endorsing a project by another government entity. So I really, really appreciated that. It jump-started our process of getting community support that ultimately did lead to Senators Merkley and Wyden getting that funding into the Senate appropriations process. And we have a certain level of confidence that that's going to actually prove up and make its way through the congressional appropriations process. They have set aside $3 million for our project, which is a heck of a good down payment and a really great start. We have an additional $500,000 that has been secured by the existing Reinhardt Clinic that can be utilized as part of the funding package when we get the entire package put together. What we're hoping to do is to build a new health center and pharmacy that will more than double the size of the existing facility. It will allow for specialty care in the community, perhaps dental care. We're going to have a modern pharmacy instead of the less than adequate pharmacy that the clinic now puts up with. We're going to have areas for staff and meeting capabilities, many more exam rooms, and better visibility for the facility in the community. As you may remember, the health district purchased a piece of property in Wheeler right on Highway 101 a year ago this summer. That is the site that we're aiming to locate this new facility. So that if this comes about, and it's a $9 million project, it will improve markedly the delivery of primary healthcare services in our community. When it comes to funding, we're continuing to flesh out the details of the overall funding strategy, but I believe it's an all of the above strategy. Fortunate to get the congressional support. There's probably a piece of state funding that could be involved, some private philanthropy, personal contribution from Mayor Scott. You know, we're looking at all the different aspects of how do you put together a project like this in a small community like ours. We have architects working, or we soon will, on the next phase of the schematic design of the project. And excited about that. That will give the community a real picture of what this could look like. We recently completed a required archaeological survey of the site, which thankfully produced no showstoppers in that regard. So I hope by the end of October, into the November timeframe, we'll have a funding package pretty well tidied up and be able to begin to try to explain what we're hoping to do to the community. At the same time, we are continuing to evaluate the prospect of repurposing a portion of our existing campus a more than 6-acre campus in Wheeler, which is the site of the old Wheeler Hospital, the current Reinhardt Clinic, and the Nevaeh Valley Care Center, repurposing a portion of that campus for workforce housing. Again, architects that we have retained, Scott Edwards, architect from Portland, a really great couple of young architects who are working on the project, are fleshing out the concept of how that housing might work in the context of what the community of Wheeler would be willing to permit and what the community would be willing to accept in terms of creating some of this kind of housing. We're not there yet, but we're working diligently to prove up those concepts. Part of some of the due diligence that we have done with regard to the housing component is a recent survey of most of the employees at the care center in Wheeler and the clinic. And I think some of the results will be informative to you as you think about these housing needs in our community. We had, a majority of more than a majority of the employees at both facilities participated. 46% of the respondents to the survey said that they're spending 30 to 50% of their income on a monthly basis for housing. 28% of them said they're spending 50% or more of their monthly income on housing, which strikes me as being an astounding figure. Not surprisingly, almost everyone in the survey said a key factor in assessing housing going forward would be the cost of those kinds of units. Nearly 25% of those who responded to the survey said that someone in their family, that they or someone in their family had either left a job or missed out on having a job in Tillamook County because they couldn't find adequate housing. So pretty much everybody's driving to work. For the most part, nearly 30% of the employees of those two facilities drive more than 30 minutes to work. Many of them drive 45 minutes to work. So it just underscores, I think, what we all sort of intuitively know, that we really do have a housing crisis for people who are working people in the community. And these are people that, as you know, are working in our retail establishments, restaurants, and in our case, are employed in health care facilities, taking care of folks at the care center and serving patients at the clinic. So part of our objective, not exactly the first thing you think of when you think about a health district to be involved in housing, but to just put a fine point on it, if we do not address the housing needs of this workforce in the really foreseeable future, we're not going to have these kinds of facilities in our communities. We're going to lose skilled nursing facilities like we have in Wheeler. We're going to lose community clinics simply because we're going to price people out of being able to work in those facilities in our communities. And I think we'll all be worse for that. So many thanks to Mayor Scott for jumping right in and endorsing what we're trying to do to round up federal support for this project. Many thanks to the senators for their engagement and their staff in working with us on the details of how it might work. We'll have a good deal more to say about that before the end of the year. But really appreciate the fact that the city of Manzanita and members of the council and the mayor have been interested in trying to be a good partner with us in helping push these projects forward. It means a great deal. It really does take a community to bring these kinds of projects to fruition, and we have a long way to go to get across the goal line, but we're making progress. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank Jerry as well. Jerry's been very involved in the working group that we put together to try to establish the framework for how we pay for these projects, and I really appreciate his very diligent involvement and his good thinking on it. So Mayor, thanks a lot. And Mike, I probably won't have an opportunity to say this again publicly, but thank you for your service to the community. I'm sorry you're not running again. I was hoping you would. You've been a great asset, not just to the city of Manzanita, but to the larger community. And I personally thank you very much for all you've done for so many years for the community. It's deeply appreciated.
Well, I really appreciate those kind words, Mark. I didn't expect that tonight. You're doing a great job up there in that project. As you know, I was on the board of the Reinhardt Clinic for 8 years and was president for a while up there. We've been trying to come up with a solution up there for a long time, and it looks like you guys might get there. So that's exciting.
I'll knock on wood while you say that. Thank you.
Yeah. So anybody, thank you very much for the update and your kind words. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Mark? Okay, well, thanks for joining us tonight. And,
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. And Leila, thanks for facilitating my brief time with you this evening. Look forward to the next time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move into old business now. And the next item is the Dorcas construction project update. And Leila, let me turn that over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I get to play Dan Weitzel tonight. I'd like to explain why Dan isn't here. Some of you may know Dan is a volunteer firefighter, and he is out east helping fight wildfires. It's a good use of his vacation time, and something that I have supported in my role as a city manager is encouraging staff to take on these kinds of responsibilities, and knowing what a shortage we have in qualified firefighters. I think we should all feel fortunate that he is there. And we look forward to his safe return at the end of the week. So I'm going to do my best to present the staff report, although it shouldn't be too hard because he and I have been working on this project for some time. But this is an update on the Dorcas Lane reconstruction project. What we're just asking today is just to give you an update and let you know what the status is. I'm joined by Kyle Ayers of North Coast Civil Design. Kyle is the principal engineer who has been designing this project and will be involved in the construction administration once we have selected a contractor. So the final design and engineering is now complete. The project includes a replacement of an existing 4-inch asbestos water main with a new 8-inch water main. All the water mains will be high density polyethylene, which is a very resilient type of material that is actually resilient to seismic movements, leaks, and wear. I do want to point out that as we were kind of going through the design of this project, I highly encourage Dan to use this material because of its resiliency, and doing an investment like this is something that will remain in the ground for a long time. And so we actually found that it was pretty cost effective to include this. And I'm really pleased that we were able to. For those of you that don't know, the asbestos type of water main is really pretty brittle. And I would say like my 3rd month here, we had a catastrophic main failure on Dorcas, which was leaking 2,000 gallons per minute. And I can't tell you, I've never felt more helpless in my life, just watching that just gurgle out into adjacent properties. So it is, and that's one of, I think, several leaks that have occurred in that line. So I'm really pleased that we're moving forward with that and with that material. The replacement will also include the replacement of 43 water service lines and 5 new additional hydrants. And something I'm very pleased with is that we will also be installing a storm line. So one of the things that has been really important to me throughout my career in doing public works projects is ripping up the street once. And it's really important that we're coordinating those kinds of investments, because it's very costly to do that. And in a city where we don't have resources to, except for those from the general fund, to do paving, we want to be as cost effective as possible. So those will also be replaced in this project. This project will extend on Dorcas from Dorcas Lane, South 3rd Street to the intersection of Dorcas Lane and Classic Lane. This also includes the full reconstruction of the road surface and base. The bid documents, including the project contract, are currently with the city attorney, and so we're waiting for that review. Once we have the sort of finalized documents from the city attorney, we expect this project will go out to bid in early October. We will go through the selection process, and then we will come back to city council. We're anticipating doing that either at the end of October or in the November meeting to get approval for that. And then we're hoping to execute on that as soon as we can and move forward with construction, which we expect to take 6 months, with final paving occurring during the spring, which probably many of you know, or if you don't, there's a paving season and it's temperature sensitive. So our goal is to get a lot of the groundwork done, a lot of the deconstruction done during the winter time. There's a cost for doing that because it is in the rainy season. So the sooner we can get moving, the better. We will also be doing public outreach, which includes contacting adjacent homeowners in the impacted area. And then Dan and I have been discussing ways that we can do outreach through the city's website, social media, and our listserv as well. And shortly, we will start placing construction information signs throughout the project area. The city budgeted for this project. So we budgeted in the 21-22 budget. There's $194,400 from the stormwater fund, the water construction funds carrying $751,359. The road fund is $614,611. And I think Kyle would concur that is the area where we saw a great increase in costs. The total budget we have for this is $1.56 million. You'll see in attachment B that there is a construction estimate, with the low end being in the $1.4 million range and the high end being in the $1.52 million range. So we are budgeted to account for all of that. In terms of the workload impact, I do want to highlight, we did get some community comments with respect to the indirect cost allocation that is not necessarily directly tied to this, but large major capital projects often do require a significant amount of administrative oversight. And I just wanted to address that. So I actually revised the staff report to include that. So while the public works director will be working with the contract engineer, Kyle, I do have a pretty significant involvement in this. At a minimum, I provide oversight to the public works director. I ensure compliance, that we are following all the public contracting rules, including facilitating legal review, finalizing of all contract and bid documents, review and approval of project invoices and payments, and review of change orders and other issues that arise during construction. Now, that is certainly a big part of what Kyle does, but any good project manager knows that on the city side, it is also our responsibility to ensure that the information we're getting is accurate, that it meets our understanding as well, before we just sort of wholesale approve things. So it's totally appropriate for us to be engaged at that level. I will also be engaging with the public works director throughout the project. This is it's the largest project. Just to give you some context, our overall spending in M&S is about 1.9 million, and this project's 1.5. So it's an enormous expenditure for us, which also means there's a lot of work that we have to do on our end to ensure invoices are paid in a timely manner, and that those things are done again in compliance with Bureau of Labor and Industry standards, as well as contract management. So the accounting manager also plays a role in this, as well as the assistant city recorder, who also reviews and looks at invoices as part of our expansion of duties. So that is where we're at. I think all of us are very excited to see this project. There's some design drawings that are included in here to give you a sense of what the roadway will look like, and other details in terms of where the line replacements will occur. And I'm hopeful that we will be back in late October or early November at our November meeting. It's my preference to do these at normal work session or council meetings. But if we need to do it a little sooner, you may be requested to join a special meeting prior to that November meeting. So with that, I will pause and answer any questions that I can. They're technical. I am going to kick those to Kyle.
Council have any questions for Layla on the project?
Mayor, I had actually two. One for Kyle, and I'll start with that one. Hi, Kyle. The question I have is, as we progress through this, it seems as though we're hitting a moment in time where we might see a bit of construction waning. I don't know that for a fact, but the economy has changed some. Are you seeing, is that being reflected at all in any of the projects you're seeing that are being bid out right now for this type of a project?
Kyle, we can't hear you. Nope. No.
Oh, no. Oh, dear.
Happens to the best of us. Just
Yeah.
Be patient.
Well, it's not something we need to dwell on. It was mostly curious because I know financially we have been looking at this for several other. Is that him? Is that Kyle?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes,
good.
we can
Yes.
hear you.
Yes.
Too many mute buttons. Yeah, I apologize. Yes, we've seen costs go through the roof this last year on so many different projects. But luckily we've seen them plateau and we're already starting to see prices come down. So if you watch timber prices, that's a pretty good indicator of where most of the general construction materials will follow along. And so, you know, a year ago you saw a sheet of plywood at nearly $100, and now it's you know, coming back down maybe to the $50 or $60 range. So, we are starting to see some of that rebound, but everything is driven by oil prices, you know, and when the majority of the cost for a project is the pavement, we're really at the mercy of the oil industry. So we held off a little bit. We had the opportunity to go out to bid in summer, but it just wasn't a good time to do that where we were seeing these astronomical prices. So we will work with the contractor, and if we start to see this price index change drastically, our contracts do allow for us to adjust those costs even after it's been bid, if it breaks a certain amount. So I've never seen that happen, but of course I've never seen costs this high before either. So we're gonna hope for a good bid. We're actually gonna do a pre-qualification for the contractors, just to ensure that any contractor that does bid on this is qualified, knows the city, knows how they work, and we don't just get somebody throwing in a low number trying to keep their guys busy for the winter.
So Kyle, have you seen it? Go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just the follow-up question obviously is the difficulty in finding contractors for work, I'm assuming, is beginning to slow as well.
That's correct. That's another great thing for having a winter construction. You'll almost double the amount of bidders on the project versus putting this out to bid in summertime. So we do outreach with contractors. You know, we talk to them all the time because we're working with them, and it sounds like there's going to be a high interest in this project.
That's
So
great.
Kyle, I'm going to ask you specifically about the asphalt. I know when I was talking with Dan and Layla a few months ago, the bids for asphalt were going right through the roof, and as you know, the gasoline price has been going down for about 5 or 6 weeks now. You think we're going to get some relief on that asphalt quote?
Again, we've already seen some relief. For example, when we were doing the Upper Manzanita or the 3rd Street project a few years back, we would see asphalt around $105 to $110 per ton. it got up to $210 per ton just in spring. So we are doing a pavement management project right now that just bid, and it came in at $150 per ton. So it is inching down. It's, you know, just have to, again, just be patient and, you know, just be diligent with how we bid this, and we'll see what we can get.
Okay.
If I could add to, I just have to take this opportunity right now. One of the things that I've been seeing through some of the town hall feedback is a real strong desire to see system development charges for developers, and that would include transportation SDCs, which we actually don't have. And I just want to clarify, because I know we have a pretty wide audience today. I think we have 30 people streaming and 20 people attending, that system development charges can only be used for system expansion. And so one of the things that was mentioned is that asphalt is one of the most costly, if not the most costly element of this project. Those funds have primarily come minimally from gas tax and mostly from general fund resources that were transferred into the road fund. I have been mentioning, and it will be included as part of our revenue diversification study, the potential for a small utility fee that's tacked on to the water bill, because if we had done that, we would have significant resources that could help offset the cost of asphalt in projects like this. Because again, we cannot use system development charges for maintenance. This is partially maintenance and partially system expansion, because we are adding and expanding the water main. But I just think it's really important for an active public who's very interested in charging developers to know that there's also a cost to the users of the system. And the more that we can offset funds in the general fund to help support necessary infrastructure, the less we will, you know, we can use those resources to do other necessary things that the city has to do. So it's an important measure. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to provide a little bit of that education, that we have seen some conflation of SDCs and system maintenance, and there are two totally separate things, and there are laws that prevent us from being able to allocate system development charges, which I will just kind of remind us again that we don't have for transportation, and we actually have no reliable funding source other than gas tax for road maintenance. And as we all know, that barely covers our potholes and our staff time associated with maintaining the roads. So off my soapbox, but just wanted to share that because I have read that in a number of the comments that have come in through the town hall.
So Layla, I did have another question for you, but now that generated another question. And through your contacts at the league or just around, is there any money that you're aware of that's going to be available for smaller communities like ours through the infrastructure bill, or has that even surfaced as an issue of discussion?
Not yet for me. I'm not aware of anything at this time, but it isn't to say that there isn't going to be resources coming at for that. I just think that those are one-time funds, and if we can get them, that's wonderful. But we do need to develop a sustainable form of resource and revenue to do ongoing street maintenance.
I'm thinking actually very specifically about Classic Street, which we've got to do something about, and that's a one-time bring it up to standards kind of expense. And so I'm hoping that maybe for the city's benefit, there'll be some monies for that. I understand the SDC charges for ongoing maintenance. Now, my other question, and through this dialogue back and forth on the indirect charges, I was a bit confused because it seems like some of the comments would suggest that we are creating a whole new line item in our current budget to fund indirect charges. Is that correct? Is that how we're approaching this, or am I just misunderstanding what's being said?
I'm not sure I completely understand the question. When we did the budget adoption there is a transfer into the general fund from the water construction fund for those indirect costs.
Right. So there's no creation of another line item specifically for the Dorcas project, unless maybe it's in a project accountings program or something.
It's in the road construction fund, and it is directly related to the to this project. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So it's almost like a subcategory of the Dorcas project.
Yeah,
as far as-
consider it the overhead for the administration of a $1.5 million project.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else on this?
Oh, go ahead, Jen.
Yes. Yeah, Jerry, go ahead.
Is there currently a storm line going down Dorcas?
I don't believe so. Am I right, Kyle? I don't think there is.
That's correct. There's only individual lines that, well, at the very east end of the project, one major task that we were trying to accomplish with this project was getting rid of the stormwater that currently runs down Classic, and so we're intercepting all that stormwater. There are only individual mains here and there that go to small basins, infiltration basins. So this is a new main that is going to take and transport all the stormwater from that east side down and out the Pacific outfall.
Does that connect? It mentions that it connects to 3rd Street. Does that go down like Treasure Cove?
Correct. It goes down. There's 2 different outfalls. There's the Treasure Cove outfall, then there's also the Pacific outfall. We branch it into 2 different systems. So
my only concern is, the load on that sewer, the storm line, and then a potential development on 3rd Street and Edmond, that area, which will all impact. But it sounds like we know where water's flowing.
yes, if you go through, I did the stormwater master plan when I was with OTAC, and we account for this sub-basin going through the, let's see, I'm just trying to remember the names, but it is the Treasure Cove and the Pacific outfalls. So they are specifically designed to have this water.
Definitely. I have a second question as well. I know that we have a transportation plan in the works for North County. Are there going to, Dorcas isn't a huge street. Is there going to be any consideration for pedestrian or bike traffic with the new paving?
I can answer that. I think there is one of the goals of the transportation system plan. So the 3 village TSP is to enhance pedestrian and bike access. I can't recall off the top of my head if Dorcas is actually specifically called out, but the policy is very clear, and there's a heck of a lot that we can do with paint. So the current design is going to be designed to our normal public works standards for streets. But there's certainly opportunity to do that. And just to also piggyback on Councilor Nuttall's comment about Classic, that was the top project identified in the TSP. It's also part of our downtown transportation plan. And so because we're developing a capital improvement plan this year, we're starting to develop the strategic resources we need to be more competitive for one-time grants and things like that. Those are resources that we haven't had in the past. So the TSP can also serve as a starting point for us to establish and start doing some work on a system development charge study, because you need to actually have a plan before you can start to figure out what those SDCs are. And just to sort of piggyback on Kyle's comment too, he mentioned that we have a stormwater master plan. I just want to highlight for folks that we do have an SDC study underway that I hope will replace the paltry $120 per unit that we currently charge, and to get us to something a lot closer to what we need to actually develop the system that we have planned for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jerry, did you have a question?
I did, but it was going to be, I was going to ask Layla to talk about the SDC studies or study that is underway. And obviously she just did. So that was good. We had a good conversation about that earlier in the week. And I think it's the comments you made about SDCs and what they can be used for, obviously is critical information for the community, but I think it's also important for the community to understand the foundational work that has to be done before we can go ahead and increase those fees, and that some of that work is underway. It's not a quick process, but it's underway, and other studies will be happening in the not too distant future, right?
That's correct. Currently, we have a water system development charge study underway, as well as the stormwater SDC study.
Okay.
So, Mayor, can I make a couple of comments or a couple thoughts here that have come up during the discussion? And this is mostly for Jenna, for example, who's new to the council and hopefully will be here for many, many years. I just want to make the point that when we talk about outfalls of this stormwater, please remember that at Pacific and Treasure Cove, that outfall is into the Pacific Ocean. And it's not into retention ponds. Kyle, please tell me I'm right here. I don't want, but basically we're dumping water into the Pacific Ocean, which many communities I'm sure are still doing, but I don't know that it's the most environmentally sound practice, or whether it's continued to be kind of moving away from that. But it's something to keep under your hat in terms of potentially moving away from doing something like that. And then the last comment I wanted to make, and this is to Kyle, we capped Dorcas and Classic in an effort to stop the outfall at Classic and Dorcas. And I guess my question to you are, and unfortunately Dan's not here, but what's the result of that? Have we been able to maintain that outflow without having it go bad places? And if we were to have some bad storm season here coming up, are we in any danger of that outfall overwhelming our stormwater system?
So we've been monitoring the storm system once everything was capped. Surprisingly, there has not been much of an impact. The stormwater is backing up to the west in the north side ditch of Dorcas. However, nothing substantial. Now, in previous stormwater projects, the city had used perforated pipe on quite a few different projects that unfortunately we've had to go away from because of the underground injection rules by DEQ. And Dan and I kind of put our heads together, and we're figuring that a lot of the water may be infiltrating right now through those perforated pipes. Unfortunately, there are not good as-builts. When that development went in on Classic and Dorcas right there, there were no good as-builts, so we aren't really sure what materials were used, and if there is some sort of a perforate or infiltration basin underneath there. So is there potential danger? Not so far that we've seen. However, the contractor is required to maintain all stormwater as a part of this Dorcas construction project. And they do have a line item for stormwater and erosion control maintenance. If it does become an issue, we have a sketched out plan for where we can temporarily pump that stormwater. And Dan was in the, he was working on getting a couple, I think 3 or 4 inch pumps that would be able to sustain that flow. So we've discussed it, we have it down on paper, and I feel pretty confident that we'd be able to manage that.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for that update. We can move on. I think we have one more item this evening to talk about. Give us an update on what's going on with the short-term rental committee and your selection process. Layla,
Yes, sir.
turn that over to you also.
Thank you. And thank you, Kyle. Appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to share my screen so that folks can follow along. One of my screens just blinked out, so I'm having to operate a little oddly here, so bear with me if you will. Okay. All right, do you just see the full slideshow now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm getting good at this. So we have two items actually, and we can sort of just merge them together. They are somewhat related. The first is the short-term rental committee mission statement, and the second item is the short-term rental committee selection criteria. So what I've done is, directed by council at the last meeting, I was asked to create a mission, and I worked with Councilor Spegman on this mission. And so tonight we're just previewing that draft mission with you all and looking for you to provide feedback. I would say that one of the things I'd like to do is keep it high level. There's nothing more fun than trying to wordsmith something with a group. So if we can just sort of stay focused, higher level, our plan is to take your feedback, take this draft mission to the short-term rental committee. We have a meeting scheduled with them on the 23rd, I think, and review this and finalize the mission. So the draft mission that we have proposed is for this committee to investigate, analyze, and propose policy solutions that address the collective impacts and unintended consequences of the city's regulated short-term rental program has on the livability of Manzanita neighborhoods, particularly those disproportionately impacted, while ensuring the ongoing financial health of the city. And that is the draft. So what I could do now is just pause and allow you to absorb that. And would welcome a dialogue around this language. We really tried to pack in a lot of things here. I think primarily that this committee is a policy committee proposing information for the council to create policy that then would be implemented by the administration. Jerry, did you have anything you wanted to add or contribute to this?
No, I do think, as Layla said, it's packed pretty tight. I think it reflects conversations that go back many, many months among this council, particularly between the mayor, myself, and Layla, as we were beginning to pull the committee together. It certainly reflects some of the conversation we had at our first committee meeting with the new committee. And it represents a bit of a negotiation between myself and Layla. We both had ideas. They were quite similar, and this is the merger of the two. And I spotted a grammatical error, but I'll stay out of that. Okay. That's all.
Thanks for pointing that out, Jerry.
Okay. Just one.
Well, you do have a lot in there in 3 lines. You did a good job.
It's always harder to say more with less.
Well, I see key buzzwords: livability, disproportionately impacted, financial health of the city. That's all stuff that's all part of the problem and the solution, hopefully. Looks good to me.
Yeah, I thought it looked excellent. I'm particularly impressed with the policy solutions, the fact that this will be a policy-directed committee, and they'll balance that with the financial needs of the city. I think that's really important: livability and the health of our community.
The only comment that I would have is I hope that the committee itself has the opportunity to really dissect this, talk about it. It seems to me that the council writing the mission statement for the committee is maybe a little backwards, that the committee itself should be generating a mission statement for their work as they understand it, and maybe then gaining council approval. So it's going to be hard to take a mission statement that the city council and the city manager have developed, take it to the committee and say, what do you think? Because what they think is the council's decided this is going to be our mission statement. So I just, that's my only comment. And
So Steve, isn't that our job? Isn't that kind of what we're supposed to do?
You're
think when
supposed to
the council-
direct the committee, and I think that's by a resolution that the council really sets the objectives. And as I stated when I began this, that we are going to review this with the committee, but I think it is important that the council is the entity that provides that lead direction. And at the last meeting, it was made clear to me that given my role in working with both the community and the council, that I had sort of a different perspective to be able to sort of join those two things together. So I would agree. I hear what you're saying, but I do believe that it is the council's responsibility to set the expectations for this committee, because they will be proposing policy solutions that the council will then consider and adopt.
I totally agree with everything you just said, and we actually agree on much of what we're talking about. I guess my point is, and I clearly didn't articulate it very well, the process of developing a mission statement is important to the committee, because they are then going through the investigation and discussion and all that's necessary to create a framework for the work that they're about to embark on, to be then handed a mission statement that's pre-approved by the council, in my opinion, takes and it's a matter of semantics, and it's been done, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm just suggesting that we take the time, this would be, I guess, for council member Spegman and the city manager to do, that we do take the time to dissect this mission statement in some detail and rebuild it, if you will, by the committee, so they have a full understanding of what their responsibility and role is. I guess I come from a different perception of, I'd rather build it from the ground up than build it from the top down. And it does, in my mind, a little bit by developing it for them, do that. So it's just a comment. It's how I would, my experience, but doesn't mean that's necessarily correct either. So just a comment.
Appreciate it. And I just want to reiterate too that is the direction. I think it's also, in my experience, helpful for committees to have something to respond to. And again, I was directed by council to do this. And as I mentioned here, that to propose this, get your initial feedback, but that we would be taking this to the STR committee to review and finalize, so that they will have their stamp on this.
Okay, so this is the draft statement. You're having a meeting on September 23rd, and you're going to let them take a look at this, and then what is going to come back to the council to finalize it? Is that the plan here?
Well, we can do that. Yes, if that's what the council would like.
Well, I just wonder, tell me what you think.
Well, we can do that. I think it would make sense based on the feedback tonight to do that, to work with the committee. So we will share this draft mission, and I may have the date wrong for the meeting. So those watching, I'm sorry, my computer is blinked out, so I can't look at my calendar at the moment. But when we do have that meeting, that will be sort of top of line of the agenda. My hope is that we can work through that at this next meeting and then bring back the final mission for the council at the next council meeting.
That sounds like the way to go, I think.
Well, okay. So am I just correct to assume there's sort of general consensus around what's been presented here, and we can go ahead and proceed with the next steps and working with the committee?
So. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it generally looks really good to me.
Great.
So,
All right. Well, I look forward to working with our STR committee, which leads us into our next topic item, which is expanding the committee a little further. So,
I just had,
oh, I
You
thought I
say
heard
something,
Steve,
or
but I
you're-
think
or you're frozen.
Steve
Is he
froze.
frozen?
He is on my screen, so let's give him a second.
Well, earlier I was having an unstable internet connection, and when we were doing the interviews, I would flip out there a couple of times and I couldn't hear their answers, but I wonder if
can you hear me now?
yeah, we can.
Yes,
We lost you for a minute though. I think we lost you again.
I don't see him on my screen at all. Maybe we can just give him a second, make sure he gets all his questions answered. I feel like we need some hold music.
Yeah.
What's he trying to log on again, do you think?
I think so. He dropped entirely off my screen, so I think it would be wise to give him a second.
No.
Yes.
Don't do that again. We can hear you now.
Now you're frozen again.
Lose him again. Oh, poor Steve. I hear somebody talking, kind of, but I can't, it's like garbled. Well, do you want to go on, Leila? Let's talk about
Well,
the.
I'm
and
going
we
to
can-
correct my grammatical error.
Okay, and then he
Thanks,
gets back
Jerry.
on, we can always back up.
Okay. Well, we kind of need him here for the next conversation too.
Okay, are you here?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do hear you, Steve. And he's gone again.
Hmm. Yeah, he's got a problem.
Do you also see my Zoom screen right now?
Yeah.
You do?
The
Oh.
draft mission. Yes.
Oh, just the mission, but you don't see my Zoom screen with all your faces on it. Like, commenter type things. Josh texts me. Thank you, Josh. I'll get my monitor cables to borrow.
So do you see Steve, or did he drop off totally again?
How
Dropped
about
off
having-
again.
How
I
about
wonder-
having
I
him
mean-
call in?
Yeah, I'll text him and see if he can.
Because at least he could hear. And I think he's really important in this next discussion.
Yeah. I'll give him the number. That hopefully will work.
I'm back, I hope.
Yes, we can hear
Yes.
you.
I'm sorry, have no idea, but I apologize for whatever it is that I did. I'm taking full responsibility.
We just wanted to, you were saying something and you got cut off, so we just wanted to make sure you had
Yeah, and
time.
thank you for waiting. I didn't need to do that, but I appreciate it. My only comment, and it's kind of a follow-up to Linda last month regarding notification to those people that are still on that list of people that the folks that applied for the positions. I'm hopeful that we can send them something, at least to update them. I checked with some folks today and they indicated they haven't actually received anything from the city. So, you know, us bad, I guess. If we could do that, and I'm happy to help if that's appropriate, if you need that, but if we could just reach out and at least give them an update on where we're at and what we're doing, and at least thank them for applying, if nothing else. So thanks. That was all I was going to mention.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think in the next item will be well suited to do that follow-up. So just to kind of give folks an update on where we are. So we were tasked with, when we adopted the resolution to establish this committee, to add 2 additional ad hoc members, largely as a result of having a fairly large pool of candidates. So what we discussed at the last council meeting is, and this is based on our new council rules, that we will provide some draft criteria for council approval. So Jerry and I, Councilor Spegman and I have been working on that. And as per our new rules, we will have a committee of 3 that will evaluate those applications, conduct interviews, and then make a recommendation to the city council for those 2 additional members. So the selection committee will consist of Councilor Spegman, myself, and that at our first STR committee, the committee elected Deb Chipola to participate as the 3rd committee member. So Deb is new to our committee, and I think this will be a wonderful learning opportunity for her to participate in this way. So I'm looking forward to working with this team to select 2 another additional wonderful candidates to help us. As I mentioned, the applicants will be selected from the initial pool of applicants, and then we will select, we will hopefully be able to present that slate to the council in October. So the proposed criteria that Councilor Spegman and I have worked on includes that the applicant either lives or works in Manzanita. And if you'll recall, we had some specific requirements of applicants, folks that maybe owned an STR, folks that lived in a high density street, et cetera. In this instance, these folks are ad hoc, and so they will not will not be required to meet any of those requirements. So there were some folks that were considered for some of those positions that were maybe not selected because we elected to appoint somebody else. What we're really looking for are people that can be objective and people that can collaborate with a group. So things that we will be looking for in their application is their ability to really come at this with an open mind. So folks that maybe have a strong social media presence and have a really specific view about how things should or should not be, we're going to take that into consideration because there's a lot of aspects to what we're dealing with. And we need folks to be able to work together. This will be a committee of 7, and there will be additional staff and non-voting members as part of that committee. So the ability to maintain objectivity and collaboration is going to be essential. The other issue too is that having someone who's non-biased, that this applicant can weigh and balance complex issues. So as we well know, the impact of short-term rentals on our neighborhoods is significant in some areas. It's less significant in others, but overall, we know that it has a major impact on the way that our city functions. We also know it's an essential component of our financing. And even if and I believe we will be successful in diversifying our revenue streams, having a real strong sense of reality around that is going to be essential. And there are a number of issues we're going to have to deal with in order to address that. So we intend to get at that by evaluating the initial application, selecting a subgroup of applicants. And these factors, I think, can really come to fruition through an interview process. So those are what we're proposing for the selection criteria. And what I'm looking for tonight is a motion of council, or we can discuss first, we should discuss these recommendations, make any edits that we may need to. And what I would like to get to is a motion to approve this criteria so that Councilor Spegman and I can move forward with the selection process, reach out to those candidates as Councilor Nuttall pointed out, and move forward with the process. I think with that, Councilor Spegman, did you want to add anything to this?
I did not. Just to repeat that, some of the folks that applied last time perhaps were not successful simply because we had boxes to fill. We had 3 or 4 categories that we had to fill, and once you filled that category, you moved on to the next one. So there may well be people in the applicant pool that certainly are competitive given these criteria. Just because they were passed over last time, that may have had more to do with the boxes we had to sort of fill as we fleshed out the committee. These criteria, maybe not so much the first one specifically, but certainly the second 2, I think were implicit, if not explicit, in the approach that Mike and I took when we first came up with the committee. But now they'll be in black and white, and they'll guide the interviews. And I think we can do a good job with the folks that are still in the pool.
Is there consideration for that either lives or works in Manzanita that doesn't consider the part-time residents?
Oh, that's a good point. How would we address that in the criteria? Could say lives, works. I don't want to exclude anyone who rents, maybe rents. I don't know many people rent part-time, but I'm open to that.
I can't remember the criteria. I don't have it in front of me, but I think we ended up with, or you could end up with somebody who was a part-time property owner, I thought.
Yeah.
That's true. And we do have one.
That's what I thought. I guess you could change that to say the applicant either lives, works, or owns property in Manzanita, something to that effect.
Owns
Sure.
or rents.
Yep. I think that's a great suggestion.
Well, you're talking about those buckets, Jerry. I remember when we were going through that, we had some pretty tight buckets, and you took that. It looked like a big list of candidates, but once you put them in their particular buckets, that was one of the challenges we had, as I remember.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And so I think this, in many ways, it'll be easier to use these criteria with the existing. The pool is still about 10 deep, I think, close to it. So
to address Steve's concern and all our concerns, is we haven't really communicated with these people very well. So I'm going to assume you guys are going to reach out to all of them and communicate with them at some I don't know if you're going to interview all of them, or if you don't interview them, you're going to contact them and tell them we're not going to interview you, or somehow you're going to reach out to everybody, right? Either by email or whatever. Is that the plan?
Yes, sorry, I was letting Steven use the 206 number. Can you ask me that question again, Mayor? I apologize.
Oh, what Steve's concern and my concern too, all of our concern is we haven't communicated with the applicants very well. We had a whole bunch of them. We picked some and it was complicated, as we mentioned earlier about we had those buckets. It was tight to fit people into those buckets. And if you didn't get picked for a bucket in a lot of cases, then you didn't qualify for any of the other buckets, so you were out. So this is opening this up pretty much to the field, but I hope we put a process in place to communicate with all these people that applied. I don't expect you to interview all of them if you don't feel that's necessary, but you need to communicate with them either by email or something and tell them what the story is.
Yeah, as I mentioned, that when we get the selection criteria completed, we will reach out to the candidates.
Okay. So you got the lives or works, owns or rents property in Manzanita. Okay. Do we need to rents? Are we worried about a short-term rental being on this committee? Or are you talking about a long-term rental person? Do we need to?
I believe that implies a long-term rental.
I'm not sure you need rents because you've said either lives, which could be own or rent.
Right.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah, I think rents might be a word that gets us in trouble.
We can take that out.
Unless you define it more and it's not worth it. Because as Linda says, if you live here, you can live here and rent. It's implied that you live here. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to own property. Did we lose Steve again?
I think
There he is. We can hear you. Yep.
I'm so sorry. We've lost the internet connection for some reason at our home, so I don't know if anybody else is affected, but apparently we are. And so thank you for sending me the telephone link. I just want to reiterate, I agree with, and I think Jenna started that discussion about we should make this available to not just people who live here on a lack of a better term, a full-time. Anyway, part-timers and others have a vested interest in this issue as well.
Yeah.
And I also sent an email to I think Layla and to Council Member Spegman regarding your 3-person team with some concerns about that. Did you receive that email?
Yes, we did.
Okay. So you took it under advisement.
We did, yes. And I think what we ended up doing was we did select somebody from the existing committee. And as I mentioned, I believe it's a great opportunity to help increase the capacity and knowledge base of new volunteers. And both Councilor Spegman and I will be sure to work closely with Deb to help facilitate this process in a good way.
Well, yeah, okay. I don't have any other comment.
Well, I think the selection criteria is excellent, especially with with Jenna's addition. And so I'm ready to make a motion.
But do we need a motion tonight to accept this, or what do we?
Yeah, I would appreciate that.
Okay. So
I'd like to make a motion to accept the proposed selection criteria for the short-term rental committee as stated above.
somebody want to make a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept this selection criteria. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mayor,
Yes, Steve.
I'm sorry, and this is awkward. I realize that. I just want to make a comment either now or after the vote. It's up to you on how you want to handle it.
Well, we're kind of in the middle of the vote at this point. I think I got
Okay.
a yay from everybody. Do you want to vote nay? or
I'm
do
going to
you-
vote. I am voting no, which hurts, to be honest with you. And it is because I think we're doing exactly what we said we didn't want to do at our last meeting. And that is creating a 3-person selection committee with someone on the selection committee that has no experience, no understanding, as far as I know, of short-term rentals other than what maybe they've learned in their very first meeting. I made some recommendations about people that might be appropriate for that. I just want us going forward. This is a symbolic no, but I realize it will pass. But I just want us to understand going forward that when we make these selections, to me, we should have the best selection committee that we can possibly create, the most knowledgeable people serving on that committee, people who understand whatever issue is being developed. And I don't necessarily feel, and all due respect to the individual that was selected, I don't know that person, never met that person, but I do know there are other people much better qualified. And so I'm voting no.
Okay, well, the motion has been moved and seconded and everyone else voted yes, I believe, and we'll note you as a no, but I believe the selection criteria has passed. Everybody okay with that? Layla, are you there?
Oh, yes, sir. I am totally great with
I
that.
feel like
Thank you.
I feel like I'm talking down the tunnel. I see
I
you.
checked
screaming,
out. Sorry.
And
No,
I can't see anybody else. It's a little
100% agree.
awkward.
I didn't know you were asking me.
That's right. So
Thank you.
So anyway, I guess we've concluded our business on this then, right?
Yes, we have. I believe so.
Okay, well, we're coming up on 8 o'clock, so you want to go through and give us your manager? Oh, we got council updates. Are we doing that tonight? Is that what we're going to do?
Yes, I was requested at the last meeting, so here we
Yeah,
are.
this was your idea, right, Steve?
It was.
I'll ask you to go first to explain what we're doing.
That's absolutely fine. So I had actually asked 2 meetings ago about including at the beginning of the meeting a brief 1 or 2 minutes by each council member to talk about what their experiences had been through the month, events that they attended, meetings they attended, issues that they addressed, comments they had from the citizens. In my experience, normally it's been at the first of the meeting, so this is a little different having it at the end. It's kind of ironic, but my report is that this August was probably the less involved city council effort on my part through the entire term that I had. Now that might be a function of a lame duck. I don't know. But it seemed like August was a month off, which I appreciated very much. I attended a few meetings. I had a number of phone calls from people in the community, emails, of course. But as far as like the month of July, I think I went to 10 or 12 meetings. The month of August was, and I think maybe Layla should be thanked for that because she was on vacation. But anyway, that's what I'm hoping we can do into the future is for each council member to have the opportunity to talk about their lives during that month as it relates to city business.
Well, let's just try this tonight and see how it goes. And if it makes sense, we can move it to the start of the meeting. We won't call on Jenna tonight since this is her first meeting, but
She might have something to say. You can ask her.
Right. You might have something to say.
I have been preparing for a public interview.
Oh, okay. There you go.
You did really well, Jenna.
And I mentioned during my interview, I went to the City Hall workshop and I came out inspired.
Oh, good.
Good.
So Jerry, did tell us all the wonderful. I know you've done a bunch of stuff this past month. Give us a summary.
Well, I'm honestly not entirely sure I understand the purpose here. I assume it's restricted to work as counselor?
I think the idea is, and Steve can correct me if I'm wrong, but it is to give the community an idea of extra time and extra effort we're putting in on various committees and stuff throughout the month.
Okay, well, I mean, I think Linda and I have both worked and have been working for quite some time with Layla on the City Hall project. And so we've had significant conversations with the design team and are working on proposal reviews for the CMGC contract. And so that's taken up a lot of time. Other than that, in August, I can't say I've had a lot of city business, I don't think. Took some time off, went out of the country briefly, and not too far, just to Canada. So that robbed me of a little bit of time. But I have been talking with some of the candidates running for office and helping them sort of get their bearings and understand what the issues are and what they're facing. And so I think that's a form of service to the council, because I think it benefits us all to have a well-educated batch of candidates, which we are fortunate to have. And so I suppose that's part of my council work. But otherwise, it's been a relatively quiet month for me. I have, Mark mentioned that, I am involved with the Reinhardt Clinic, which, by the way, is now the Nehalem Bay Health Center and Pharmacy. And although that's not directly related to my council effort, I'm really glad that our council and our community see that work over there as part of a broader Three Village effort that's going to really have a substantial impact. And so I hope that we continue to support that as we go forward with the new council. But that's it for me.
Thanks, Jerry. Linda, do you have anything you want to share?
Well, just a couple of things. First of all, working with Jerry and Layla on the City Hall project, I've been really impressed with the Klosh Group and their coordination of, particularly the CMGC. We're right in the middle of looking at the RFPs. As a candidate, I have been meeting with a number of groups throughout the city, and I am finding that people are really interested in what's going on with the city, and the questions have been excellent. The interest has been high, and I think it's actually been a really rewarding and exciting process. And I'm sure I've been working with the other candidates as well. I've gotten to know them pretty well, and I think we've got a good base of candidates moving forward. The only other thing in terms of external activity, the Emergency Volunteer Corps is putting together their annual report, and a couple of things really stood out for me in that, and I think they deserve credit for that. The Medical Reserve Corps spent over 4,200 hours providing COVID vaccinations this last year, 2021. And they received statewide recognition for the work they had done. I think it was the most innovative MRC in the state. And I think we're really lucky to have the qualification of the retired doctors and nurses who are willing to give their time to the community and provide the resources countywide. Other than that, I think that's where I've spent most of my time.
Well, thank you, Linda. When Steve mentioned we were going to do this, I started writing down notes what I've done in the last month as mayor, and I don't want to be sounding my own horn here, but what showed me was just how big and important the mayor's job is and how many things I get involved in a month's time. And I just run through these real briefly. I every Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock, I represent the city on the Tillamook County Call, which is broadcast on KTIL radio. And they do a community update, and that takes about an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours every Tuesday. And all the cities are represented on that call. Some of them never participated, and I don't know why, but I'm pretty regular on that call. There's some good information, and anybody in the community can listen to it. County sheriff's on there, 3 county commissioners, our state representatives, and it's a pretty good call. They started with COVID, and they just kept doing it. So I do that every Tuesday. I was also involved in a conference call on the Alderbrook Golf Course, which I don't know if people know, but the Alderbrook Golf Course down by Bay City has closed and is up for sale. And there's some discussion and pressure being put on the county commissioners for the county to possibly buy that golf course. I don't think that's the direction it's going to go. But what that has ended up doing is, as far as I know, we are the only active golf course in Tillamook County now. All the rest of them are closed. And if you go by our golf course very often, they're getting a lot of play. I think people are coming up from south in the county to play golf here because there's no other options anymore. So that's an interesting conversation. There's a 38 unit subdivision that's been approved by the Tillamook County Planning Commission. It's called Riverview Phase 2, which is just outside of Nehalem out by McDonald Road. I took a tour of that. I know we got a lot of development going on in Manzanita, but there's stuff going on around us too. I met with the auditors last week. Each month I get together with Layla and sit down and review and set the agenda for this meeting, which usually takes a little time. The mayor also, I get the pleasure of reviewing all the bills and signing all the checks and signing all the payroll checks. So I get to do that twice a month. I had a meeting with our attorney to discuss the LUBA appeal going on with the Manzanita lofts. I reviewed and signed the county agreement on the coordinated homeless response. And I've had pretty much most of the candidates that are running for office have called me and have come and personally met with me. And so that's kind of what I've been doing. And that's been about 2 weeks. So I guess when I said I added that all up, I got this nice little 20-hour-a-week job that I don't get paid for. But anyway.
Mayor, I had one other, if you wouldn't mind, I had one other thing that you reminded me of. Can I just make a quick comment? First, thank you. I think what I heard from everyone was exactly what I was thinking and what I've heard in other places. And really the intent is the opportunity to talk about stuff maybe that didn't make the agenda or ongoing projects and things like that. So I thought it was like perfect. I hope we can move it to the beginning of the meeting. But I did want to make a quick mention because of the golf. I did have the opportunity to have lunch this past week with the owner of the golf course. And we talked about the future of the golf course and how things have gone. This is actually the 5-year anniversary, believe it or not, of when we established the conservation easement and the golf course reopened under new ownership. It's been 5 years. And I was telling Matt, there's a lot of stuff that's happened in the last 5 years. And when we started to reflect on all that had happened during that time, it was pretty amazing. But I wanted to, because of the golf course connection, I did want to mention that the Mudnick Foundation will be having their annual golf tournament and auction September the 16th and Saturday the 17th. There's a dinner, there's pre-dinner, there's a virtual auction, there's a live auction. And I mention it because the Mudnick Foundation has provided over $2 million over time to the school system, to Neahkani schools, for experiences for our children in the school system that they would not otherwise have the opportunity to participate in. And if you have the inclination attending the banquet on Saturday, I'm assuming there might be still a few tickets left. You will find it so engaging and so important in terms of what the students have been able to achieve because of the money that's raised by the Mudnick Foundation. And for those of you who don't know the story about that, that started on the golf course I think 30 plus years ago, when a Nicholson and a Mudd, both names well known in our community, decided that they were having a little golf tournament. And from that, it evolved into what we have today. It's pretty amazing. And again, that's on the 16th, 17th, and you can find information about that at the Mudnick Foundation, spelled M-U-D-D, Nick Foundation.com. So that's my plug for today.
I think we also got the Mudnick, or not the Manzanita is Saturday too, I believe. Which is the
As is the Hoffman annual plant sale happening on the same day. So
yeah, there's plenty to do.
It'll be fun.
Why don't you wrap this up for us with your city manager's report?
Cool, cool. Well, I will say that my vacation had nothing to do with the light agenda. I'd say just created a heck of a lot more work for me coming back to a brutal reentry, which included notice of a LUBA appeal to LUBA on the Dorcas hotel project. And so I want to thank Scott Gebhardt in particular for just knuckling down with me to prepare the record, which was substantial and just on top of everything else that we had to do. I will say the vacation did refresh me coming back to deal with the mountain of work. So, and in preparing for this meeting. I do want to mention that another party has intervened in the appeal and we'll be providing the record. I did get notice from our attorneys that their LUBA rejected the record primarily based on page numbering issues. And so we're just going to remedy that and get them back an updated record in the next week. So the timeline for that is such that it's unlikely that if it's remanded back to the city that this council will be the body that makes that decision. So more on that as I learn more. The timeline is in flux right now. Once the record has been accepted by LUBA, then there's a series of statutory deadlines that LUBA has to adhere to. So more on that. I did want to confirm that as of tomorrow, the candidates running for office have been confirmed, and I have sent off those names to the county clerk and they have been accepted. We have an uncontested mayor's race with Deb Simmons on the ballot. And we have 3 individuals running for city council, includes Linda Kozlowski, Mark Kusner, and Brad Mayerly. That will be part of the subject of the Manzanita Minute, and I've been working with Councillor Spegman to engage with the candidates to put together our online voters pamphlet. So more on that soon. The geotech, so this is a drilling exercise that we do. It's part of the due diligence for the development that will hopefully and soon occur on the site Underhill. So you might be seeing some drilling rigs out there in the next couple of weeks, and they'll be taking samples of the soil, which is essential for us as we start to move forward with the design process. So if you see those rigs out there, that's what it is. We had a city hall, town hall, as I mentioned, the 29th of August, shortly after my return, and we got a wonderful turnout. We maxed out capacity in the Pine Grove Community House. We had 50 people show up and engage in some really great conversations. So I'm grateful to those that did that. We also provided an online survey for folks, and so far I have close to 70 responses. So we're getting a lot of feedback. That closes tonight. So if you're interested, please go to the city's website and give us your feedback. We will have a planning commission meeting this week, and it's for a project that's proposed on the corner of 3rd Street and Lanita. So that will be happening at our meeting, which is on the 19th. Materials will be posted next Monday for that. As both Councillor Spegman and Kozlowski mentioned, we are in the process of evaluating. We got 5 proposals for the CMGC, which is awesome. And so we are in the process of evaluating those. We should be conducting interviews, and my hope is that we will have a recommendation for council's consideration in October. And then just finally, I did want to mention that thanks to Commissioner Aaron Scarr of the Tillamook County Commission, staff from the cities within Tillamook County had an opportunity to engage with Dr. Brenda Bateman, who is the new executive director of the Department of Land Conservation and Development. And I engaged very actively in that conversation and sort of re-emphasized some of the city's policy objectives with respect to the priorities that we set for the League of Oregon Cities. In terms of supporting smaller rural communities to help implement statewide planning goals, including those related to housing and sustainability. And I felt very heard. My neighbors in Wheeler and Nehalem were also present, and that was a really valuable conversation. And I think Dr. Bateman is going to make some real differences at DLCD. So I'm excited about her role. there's about a million other things, but I think we're done for the day. So thank you so much for the time.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. I think unless anybody has a final comment, we're going to adjourn. So I'm going to adjourn us tonight at 8:16. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.